We're back with a feature we had last offseason called Twins Free Agents that you have probably forgotten, and we're remembering them. So let's pick up where we left off. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren. You can unfollow me on the tweets at Brandon_WARNE. And while you're doing that, follow me on the skeets at warn.bsky.social on the blue sky. Love to see you over there having a lot of fun. And it's actually fun to hit the refresh button again, which is exciting. Across the screen from me, a ball writer since 98, BBWAA since 2012, Hall of Fame voter for the second time this upcoming cycle. It's Mr. Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown on the tweets, at Answer Dave on the skeets. What up? You're muted, Dave.
Sorry. I'm not coughing. That's not why I was muted. I accidentally hit. I'm doing fine, Brandon. I accidentally hit a loud thing, and I didn't want it to. I don't think you could hear it anyway, even if it went.
Well,
an autoplay type situation.
I said we were bringing back an old feature that I did not suspect you hitting the mute button would be that feature.
Yeah, and those are different features. Me coughing and hitting the mute button when I don't want to. Those are different things that I bring to the show.
Well, the coughing sounds like a bug rather than a feature, but I digress. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And, of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. And we love to hear from you in the comments section, whether you're watching us on the YouTube premiere or YouTube just after the fact. You stumble upon us during your daily doom scroll of YouTube. I don't know if you have those. I have those sometimes. But either way, we love to hear from you. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. That's FanDuel.com to get started. And so like I kind of teased, we're going to bring back this feature from last offseason. We just kind of ran out of runway. The feature started, and then the season started, and suddenly people didn't want to hear about Rondell White anymore. But they didn't in the first place. But yeah, so we're bringing back the Remembering Twins Free Agents You've Forgotten. This is part 6, so not quite to the Phil Miller level of rehashing a 10-part article or 10 parts on one article, but we're gonna get some mileage out of this one, Mr. Dave Brown.
Oh, and we have already. It's but if you when we are your daily destination for Twins things, sometimes those days are sort of repeats of other days where you got to go back in time 15 years for not news but content. Content's the word. So, and hopefully people will be content with our content.
Time is a flat circle, kind of like a Brad Radke fastball in the first inning of any given start. In fact, what's that?
Don't diss Brad Radke.
Rocco Baldelli hit his first big league home run off Brad Radke. Did you know that?
Wow. And they still let him in the stadium. That's amazing.
It was a different stadium at the time, but no, but I happened to uncover that recently. I don't know. I was on YouTube looking up Rocco Baldelli highlights because
I love factoids like that. Although, if I were to bring that up to either of those guys, if I had an opportunity, I don't know what I would do next. Like, it'd be like, oh yeah, and then,
nope.
I did.
See you later.
And then what would I do next with that information? I don't know.
Well, here's a fun bit that has a tie-in to our most recent episode. You remember how I was bringing up that I could see Scott Blewett, or that it was possible Scott Blewett could have been signed by the Twins and then Rule 5 a week later?
Yeah.
That happened to a pitcher we're about to talk about. A former now, future then, Cy Young winner, signed with the Twins at the end of 2007, November 29th, 2007. He was at that point, make sure I get his age correctly. He was coming off his age 32 season. Now he hadn't pitched, he'd been hurt. And the Twins signed R.A. Dickey. If you're familiar with R.A. Dickey, it's not because he was all that successful as a Twin, but because he ended up winning a Cy Young much, much later in his career with the Blue Jays, was with the Mets for a while. Did I have that right? Cy Young was with the Mets. Sorry, Blue Jays was after that.
37 in 2012, so 12 years ago.
So he threw his last pitch with the Twins when he was 34 and still had a Cy Young award in his future. Kind of hard to believe, but listen to this transaction log because it is, it's a real trip. On November 29th, he signed as a free agent with the Twins. On December 6th, the Mariners took him in the Rule 5 draft. Why? Don't know. On March 29th, the Mariners said, okay, you can have him back. That's 2008. And then on that day, the Twins said, okay, give us Jair Fernandez and you can have him. So he spends 2008 with the Mariners. Not particularly good, I don't think. 5.21 ERA. He made 14 starts, 32 appearances, didn't strike anybody out, walked a bunch of people, was still kind of trying to find that knuckleball. Anyway, Twins said, hey, RA, remember when you signed with us a year ago? Let's do that again. And he signed with them on December 26th, 2008. Spent 2009 in the Twins organization before signing with the Mets at the end of 2009. Now, the 2009 season with the Twins, if you're not remembering it, it's because it was pretty unremarkable. He made 35 appearances, 1 start, 13 games finished, which, with no saves, pretty good indicator of a mop-up guy. 5.9 strikeouts per 9, 4.2 walks per 9, 1.62 whip. So not a lot going on. He also spent a portion of that season in Rochester, making 5 starts, 5.13 ERA, no strikeouts, 4.9, few walks, 1.44 whip. If you have a 1.44 whip at AAA when you are 34, you are 7 years older than the league average pitcher. The futures bet, let's give some love to FanDuel. The futures bet on that being a future Cy Young winner would probably be what, about 100,000 to 1?
I don't know if anybody gives those kind of odds, but just in case. But yeah, figuratively speaking, you're absolutely right. R.A. Dickey, his first, it was 9 seasons. It wasn't 9 seasons worth of baseball because he was in the minors a lot. So his first 144 games, his first 442 2/3 innings in the majors, and that includes his time with the Twins. He had 0.9 WAR. He accumulated and he managed to stay in the league.
Yeah,
a 5.43 ERA. I remember him. I don't remember the Twins season. I do remember him. Definitely remember him with the Rangers being like, oh, great. All right, Dickey's coming in because he's good against the White Sox and absolutely nobody else. I haven't actually looked that up to see if it's true, but it seemed like it was. So he was the guy that you wanted to see pitch if you were an opposing team because he was not any good. And then he figured out how to throw a knuckleball. This was about the time he left the Twins. So
didn't he have a contract voided because he didn't have a UCL in his elbow?
That's true. He didn't. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure about the voided contract, but I believe you. But I do remember that he didn't have a UCL. So that's fascinating stuff. So he didn't get good until he was 35. That's not when it comes to the knuckleball is, of course, the game changer here. I mean, that is a kind of a familiar story with not everybody that has thrown a knuckleball in Major League history, but it's not uncommon for them to start to get going in their mid-30s and pitch in their mid-40s. And that's almost, Dickey lasted until he was 42 with the Braves in 2017. He was a really good interview. He was very kind of folksy and oh gosh, and but I found it also real. I don't think he was really putting on an act or anything like that, but he was great to talk to. And he only had just the one all-star season. Did he have it? Yeah, he did. And that's when he was the Cy Young. And he got 14th place in MVP voting. And then the next year, he was also a Gold Glove. So, but he had several good seasons with the Mets and the Blue Jays, and it was those players like R.A. Dickey that's what one of the things that makes baseball fun, when you have something different come along and unexpected, and the player seems to enjoy it, and we do too. He was a fun dude. Not with the Twins though.
No, made almost $60 million in his career, was traded as part of a deal for Noah Syndergaard. And this is what I found about the failed physical.
Right.
Yes. Robert Allen Dickey failed a physical before signing with the Rangers in 1996. He was born without a UCL. When the Rangers trainer noticed his elbow position in a Baseball America cover photo, he alerted the team's orthopedic doctor, and the doctor said, all right, lower that bonus offer from $825K to $75K. Instead, he decided to not sign and return to college, at least according to this search that I did. But he did end up signing eventually with the Rangers, and was there until he was with the Brewers for the 2007 season, signed as a free agent. So he kicked around all over the place. Also, Detroit Tigers draft pick in 1993. So what a fun bunch of like bar trivia for a guy to have in in his back pocket, to be part of his lore.
He definitely accumulated it. If you were, we can't really show you. I'm not equipped to do that. But when he was with the Blue Jays, this Blue Jays blogger fan said, declining that phone call, said, created a cartoon. It was almost like, what was the name of it? I can't remember the, not Clutch Cargo, but it was almost sort of that quality where you'd stick a, what was that website where the jibjab.com, something like that. And
where they'd have the talking heads, like
yes,
Jim Jam.
Yes, almost that quality. But he would put Cashew Merriman was the guy's name, or at least that's what he went by. And he did these. So Cashew, like the nut, and Merriman, Mirman. Do a YouTube search for that and R.A. Dickey, and just some hilarious animated jibjab-looking.com videos of him in preposterous situations, like, aliens are invading and only R.A. Dickey can save it. It was great. It was, it was the golden era of fans blogging, and this is about the time I started at Yahoo. So this is 2008, 2009 in there.
The dugout.
Yes, the dugout.
Progressive Boink is one place I'm seeing it.
Just absolutely hysterical. It's incredible. We talk about shows like this sort of supplementing our content, if you will, during the lean times. This is something where the guy took a really cool story, R.A. Dickey becoming a knuckleballer, and he just turned it completely on his head and made this silly, it was just stuff that was entertaining in between games. It's you don't, not to sound like an old man, but you don't see that right now really on the internet very much. It's people are fatigued, or they realize they're not going to make a lot of money at it, so they stop doing it. But this was when people were making content. I don't know if they were hoping to catch on or get wealthy with it or whatever, but it was fun stuff. So look for that Cashew Merriman, Robert Allen Dickey cartoon, The Dugout.
That's kind of the niche I think we scratch here.
Sure. So, or if you don't, just enjoy us.
Yeah, Jim Tomei though would always be in like all caps, and he would just say like J I.
Yes, something very simple, like oh God, he wouldn't say much.
Jim mashes them golden taters and all that.
He really leaned into Jim Tomei being from Central Illinois. Yeah. So
we don't want to give away too much of that, and we also can't give away the fact that we got to read some of our ads. So let's take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll have a lot more fun where that came from. Well, we love Gametime, the Gametime app. You're looking for tickets to an event, whether it's a sporting event, a concert, comedy show, you name it, Gametime has it. Download the app and you can search. So, for instance, I go on there, look at Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I can see events on either side of the river, in the suburbs, you name it, they've got it, all different things. And a lot of times, if I'm looking, like, for instance, for tomorrow night, I have no idea what's going on. There's high school football championship games. There's all kinds of fun stuff, and Gametime wants to help you get to those. My favorite part is to toggle that all-in pricing, so I know that if I see $20 on the screen when I pick the ticket, I pay $20 when I pay for the ticket as well. Panoramic seat views, also huge bonus for me. I want to see, with the exception of if someone has a big head in front of me, what I'm going to be looking at in front of me, wherever the venue is. Now, I'm usually the one with the big head, so your mileage may vary. But with that said, the lowest price guarantee, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the ticket cheaper elsewhere, and they have the most flexible customer service policy in the game today. You got to check them out. It's Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, number 2 on our list is Casey Daigle. And if you do not know Casey Daigle, he pitched parts of 3 big league seasons with the Diamondbacks and the Astros. Never made it to the major leagues with the Twins, but signed with the Twins on December 3rd, 2007 after his first 2 cameos with the Diamondbacks. Big, tall, strapping lad, 6'2", 220, Joe Mauer style sideburns, but perhaps best known as being Mr. Jenny Finch, who was probably the most, and may still be the most famous women's softball player of all time.
Maybe the most famous softball player of any gender.
Yeah, have to be. I don't know. Yeah, why did I say women's? Any softball player.
Well, a sidebar, in Chicago, they have some very locally famous 16-inch softball players, but that's a regional thing. I was thinking about this. If I were Casey Daigle, and he's got a bunch of names in his last letters in his last name that he doesn't use, but that's okay. Would I be content with having gotten to the majors briefly and kind of struggled and all that, and it didn't really happen for me, if I could be married to Jenny Finch at the same time? Now, that's not just on a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not trying to sexualize that. I'm just saying, if my wife were more successful than me in basically the same
field
industry, yes, that I'm in,
you're not being a chauvinist.
I'd probably be okay with it. I would be disappointed enough in my own limited career, but it wouldn't make it worse that Jenny Finch, my wife, was basically a star. So I guess I've come to terms with it for Casey that it's okay. An interesting thing about that couple, they were married. Jenny Finch is from Orange County, California, I believe, and they were married at the Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove, California, which at one time was maybe one of the most famous churches in the world. It was just this beautiful, and it still might be there. I went to services there once when we were on vacation because my mom always used to like to watch the Hour of Power. Is that what it was? With Dr. Robert Schuller. And this was a TV preacher who was on Sunday mornings, and he'd do it from this Crystal Cathedral. Just absolutely, it was like Superman's house, but a church. It was just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, and it was on TV every week. And this is where Casey and Jenny Finch got married. And wow. It's just Robert Schuller later in life, it turned out, was either he was corrupt or he let people around him be corrupt. And his son kind of took over the family business, if you will. But it turned out that they were stealing a lot of the money that people were donating. So I know that's unprecedented in the history of religion. Nobody's ever done that before. So, right. But it's the most beautiful church that you've ever seen in your life. Look, that's another thing for you to Google after you're done Googling R.A. Dickey's cartoon in the dugout. Google Robert Schuller and the Crystal Cathedral. He actually put on a good service. It was good news, it was positive feeling kind of thing. It made you feel good, even if you weren't particularly Christian liver. Jenny and Casey, they have 3 kids, and she's still kind of a celebrity, and hopefully the kids will grow up and be good softball players or baseball players or whatever. And it's a fun kind of baseball softball story.
While you're Googling, Google Tyler Malley shoulder injury too, or at least push that Google search off to the side. Don't lose sight of it though, because you still got to Google that.
Nice trade.
Yeah, nice trade, Falvey. Jenny Finch, actually, if I'm not mistaken, and not because I have a great memory or anything, the UPS guy's just dropping off here, so the dog might bark.
Well, that's your side industry right there. You know about those people. You're
wearing the brown jacket right now, but I believe Jenny Finch pitched during the celebrity softball game at the 2014 All-Star game, which is where you and I first laid eyes on each other. And she made Adrian Peterson look like an absolute fool. Now, that's not hard to do outside of a football field.
Well, that's a switch. Get it?
Yeah, right?
She was
it just goes to show how great of an athlete you can be and not be able to swing a bat, and two, even if you can swing a bat, how it is exceptionally difficult to hit arguably the greatest pitcher in softball history.
I think she did more than one All-Star game, but she was at that one. And I would imagine also did an MTV Rock and Jock. Remember those? Those are fun. I kind of imagine her doing that as well. So it's too bad we don't see more of Jenny Finch out in the softball circuit these days.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's take our second break because we got 3 to get through that are not going to be, I think, as fun to talk about or as long-winded. But
get a load of these guys.
But first, a word. And that word is FanDuel, because you can get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Now, the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you fire up that app. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can find the latest stats, live play-by-play, all that on the same page you place your bets. It's like having a little red zone in your back pocket. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today, and they'll get you going with $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet if it wins. So again, find something you feel is that you're confident about, put $5 down, and they'll hook you up with $150 extra. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I was listening back to one of our older episodes, and I said NFL, and then you spent like the next 20 seconds making fun of how I said it. So I thought I'd do a nice callback to that.
I don't remember that. I'll remember making fun of you, but I don't remember that.
Well, we've got to flush these shows and move on as fast as we get them out. Thus is the nature of the beast when you're doing the everyday podcast game. Now,
you have to say flush, though. That makes me think of something else.
Yeah, I don't know. So the next guy, and this is actually someone I was excessively excited about the Twins signing, was Mike Lamb. Now, I'll have you know, he was coming off a nice year with the Houston Astros. In 353 plate appearances, he hit 289, 366, 453. Virtually a carbon copy of his year before, 113 OPS plus in 2006, 111 in 2007, comes to the Twins and is immediately just awful. One home run in 261 plate appearances, 598 OPS, 61 OPS plus. It was only 32, but his career was in effect finished. Now, the Twins had not had anything to write home about at third base since Corey Koskie had left. And so I thought, you know what? They will be able to take this guy who was a part-time player, a bench player, and, get him full-time plate appearances and have an answer at third base. We're not going to have to worry about it being Nick Punto or Tony Batista over there. And I remember telling Seth Stowes at Twins Fest that year, I'm like, let me tell you, man, look out for this Mike Lamb guy. And this is when I was like first getting into sabermetrics and baseball prospectus and all that. And so I'm like, oh, I'm down with that OBP, you know me. I was very excited for Mike Lamb, and it did not go well.
Well, Lamb was a guy, he was pretty good. He hit a home run in the World Series in 2005. against the White Sox. So
I think his most famous batted ball is that Gary Matthews Jr. catch, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, did he hit that? That's
where he does like the pirouette climbing the wall at Old Ranger Stadium. Yeah,
I know. Well, that's as good of a catch as I think has ever been caught on film.
Yeah, I think that was the reason I remember is because Lamb had kind of a distinctive follow through, and I'm remembering the beginning of that play being Mike Lamb's swing. I'll go back and check the tape after, but if I'm wrong, full refunds in everybody's email address or email inbox tomorrow morning. But yeah, I think that it was him, and so yeah, he does have a link to something historical, and it's not just that he was historically bad with the Twins.
He also kind of took over for Bagwell at Houston a little bit. Bagwell was kind of reaching sort of near the end of his career and had surgery in those days, and wasn't the Hall of Fame player that he was even a few years prior to that. So he's good lefty bat. Not a guy that ascended from like 7th round, the Rangers. So he had, let's see, his last game, he hasn't played since 2010. So it's been a while. And now Mike Lamb is 49. He hasn't hit 50 yet. He'll hit 50 next August. So he's got that home run off Jose Contreras in the World Series. And it wasn't, the Astros didn't win any of those games. The White Sox actually had a good season once. It's kind of hard to believe. I know ESPN doesn't remember that, but he was a dude and a guy that had a career, like you said, and it didn't really have anything to do with the Twins. He was maybe like 50% below league average when he was a Twins player. He had one home run. Did you say one home run between two teams in 2008? So that's not. We got one gosh darn hit. Yeah. So. He was definitely at the end of the road. He had some good OPSs, even though in that era it was kind of a juiced ball, juiced person era. So he probably had like 2-3 good seasons with the Astros, and then a couple average seasons with the Rangers, and then a Twins thing that wasn't so hot. So it was hey, if you can get 975 major league games in, you did all right.
Yeah. Now, if you're looking at the screen, you'll see I have an AWR. The Twins on January 7th, so just a month-ish after signing Mike Lamb, signed Zach Day. Now, Zach Day was a starter. He won 21 games between 5 seasons before signing with the Twins, never pitched to the big leagues after that. Would have been his age 29 season. And AWR is what we call an average white righty. And I get that from Jeremy Hefner. When people would ask him to describe his career, he was an average white righty. And
Twins pitching coach now, Jeremy Hefner? Is that?
He's with the Mets now, but he was at the time.
I'm sorry, the Mets pitching coach, yes. Okay.
Yes. And so, yeah, that was kind of fun. I don't know. I look back, and I think I had just a higher recollection of Zach Day from, like 2003 winning 9 games. Back in that day, when I still thought pitcher wins kind of meant something. Because like 2004 is when I really first dug into like, okay, what is on base percentage and Moneyball and, the real Moneyball, not the movie, and that sort of thing. And so I just thought, oh, yeah, that guy won 9 games a few years ago. And, maybe he could be interesting. And no, he wasn't. He wasn't.
Not a great strikeout to walk ratio, 189 strikeouts, 172 walks. So that's something you don't see a lot these days.
Very Noah Lowry in his last season with the Giants-esque. Which is another.
Oh, man, Noah Lowry. I always thought Noah Lowry would turn into something, too. He was kind of like was he a lefty? Yeah,
he and Matt Cain and Tim Lincecum were supposed to be like the next big thing, and Merkin Valdez, and
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Maybe Jeremy Williams, whatever he was going by at that time. I think that was the big group of guys that were supposed to be like the next Isringhausen, Pulsifer, and Bobby Jones. No. Anyway, the last one, because we're kind of running out of time here, is Danny Graves. Now, Danny Graves was a pretty successful closer. Vietnamese, I think you pointed out when we talked about off the air, his ethnicity is unusual for a Major League Baseball player. But
he's born in Saigon, slick.
Yeah, and he followed me on Twitter on my old account. I don't know if he's following me on my new one. I'm not really paying that much attention. But I messaged him. And the one way you can differentiate yourself in these conversations is by being genuine. And I said, like I said to Scott Layus, I was a fan of yours. He looks at me funny, and I recite the first inning of the 1994 no-hitter against the Brewers. With Danny Graves, I was like, listen, I thought it was awesome when you signed with the Twins back in 2008. Now, it was just before spring training was done. And he goes, oh, man, my shoulder was cooked by that point. No bueno. And it was just kind of a fun little conversation, though. Like, I'm not clinging to him because he's a former big leaguer. I'm like, hey, I followed you. I thought, like, I was aware of you back in the day, and I still am now. And if you can talk to guys like that and be genuinely interested and honest, they can see that.
Yeah, I like Danny Graves, 2-time All-Star with the Reds. Started out actually with the Guardians at the Indians in those days, and I always found it interesting when those two teams would trade with each other. It's like, ooh, kind of dangerous here. These two teams don't like each other. They're both from Ohio, kind of like Cubs versus White Sox. But he was a guy that didn't throw hard, but compared to like a lot of closers, but still was able to get guys out in high leverage. So he was a guy that he had some great individual seasons and some just horrendous ones too. You know, he had ERAs that were 50% better than average, 80% better, 35% better, and also like 35% worse than league average. So he was a guy that interesting baby-faced assassin, I think, is an unofficial nickname I've seen on baseball.
That brings up a good point. I'm not worried about us getting out of here on time in this episode. So
good.
We oftentimes have nicknames for players, and it's like they've never been called that. I feel like we should call it like a moniker rather than a nickname. Nickname, it should be something you call someone. Like if someone called you Davey growing up,
Yeah.
But a moniker, like Paul Molitor said, nobody ever called me the Igniter. Like, oh, the Igniter just got here. Like that. It's so dumb, but we call that a nickname. It's like, and so then
another fire Molitor.
Well, like back in 2012 when everybody was writing for Fangraphs, like they'd try to shoehorn all these inside baseball references, and it would just get really awkward and jargony. And it's like we don't need to do that. Paul Molitor has never been the Igniter. You might talk about him as the Igniter because he was a catalyst for good offenses. But I think we should call it something other than nickname, like moniker. Come up with another word for it, because nobody's like, hey, baby-faced assassin. And Danny Graves is like, what's up?
I agree with that. I also, there's also, it's a sort of a parallel thing with these nicknames on Baseball Reference that I don't know that anybody actually ever even referred to them as that. You know what I mean? It's like there's sort of two things here. A, it wasn't a nickname. B, I think someone just made this up like an hour ago and put it on their Baseball Reference page. I think there's like two things at work with some of these nicknames. Getting back to Paul Molitor for a second, Don Drysdale, I remember that's how I knew that he was the Igniter. Don Drysdale will refer to Molitor as the Igniter on the broadcast all the time when they were playing the White Sox. So it wasn't like he said, it wasn't a nickname like, hey, Ig, he's coming to the clubhouse again. Hey, Niner.
Well, when I first had like my welcome to sports media, what you read on Wikipedia or what these nicknames say aren't likely true or whatever. I was interviewing somebody when I had taken an internship, a paid internship with Bleacher Report. I was working with King Kaufman for a while. And how's that for a name pull? And they had me interview one of those like jack of all trades college quarterbacks who
Josh
Moody. No. Like was a college quarterback, but then became like a wide receiver, wildcat quarterback, gadget guy.
Jason Bill of his day, whoever it is.
Yeah. And I said, can I ask you about your nickname, Ninja Fists? And he goes, I've never heard that before in my life. And I was like, huh.
We're going to get Kaufman Stadium in here again. Yeah, Ninja Fists? That sounds almost like a phrase you shouldn't say out loud.
Well, yeah, see, if we search Ninja Fists now, which I, taking my life into my own hands on Google Chrome here, nothing's coming up. I want to say his name was Brad something. Brad Smith, maybe? Brad, I don't know.
It's getting funnier.
Right. Anyway, it was one of those guys who kind of did a little bit of everything back in like 2011, 2012.
If you Google Ninja Fists Brad, the first thing that comes up is a video titled Bros versus Ninja Warrior Training. Bros versus Ninja.
It reminds me of that scene on Wayne's World where he's like, I just always wanted to open up a door to a room where everybody was training for hand-to-hand combat.
Yes. Oops, from the room. Oh, hey, Igniter.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we get to more Kaufman Stadium, let's call a clean break here. And
we have another commercial?
No. I mean, we're going to be done for this episode.
Oh, okay.
And then what we'll do is we'll be mixing in some of these as the holiday season progresses on, and we need some time away when things aren't happening so that you can still be entertained by him, Mr. Dave Brown, me,
Hi.
Mr. Brandon Warren. Find us on Blue Sky. We're not hard to find. But for now, that's a wrap. This has been Locked On Twins, and we'll see ya
tomorrow. See ya.
Night. Lexi.
Bros versus Ninja.